The train now arriving at platform 1 will contain strong language. Please mind the gap.
My name's Jeff, aka the Cynical Biker, and this is where I give you my take on the circus of politics, part the curtains of spin and highlight the shitfuckery behind them. As a British-born boomer, I was raised under Margaret Thatcher, with Ronald Reagan to the west and Leonid Brezhnev to the east, and I thought that was a low point. For the last 15 years, I've been riding around the world on a motorbike, and when I left London, Tony Blair had just thrown a hospital ball to Gordon Brown. I don't know if that was another low point, but looking at the world I left behind me now, what the fuck happened? Yes, I know what happened. Brexit happened. Boris Johnson happened. Donald Trump happened. But how did those things happen? How did we let those things happen? And more importantly, why the fuck aren't we out on the streets with pitchforks? I don't know where to start. But when COVID came along, Boris Johnson had one clear message for the people.
The time has now come for us all to do more. You must stay at home. You should not be meeting friends, and will stop all social events, including weddings, baptisms, but gatherings will be dispersed. No Prime Minister wants to enact measures like this. I know the damage that this...
His more recent messages were just as clear. There was no party in Downing Street. And after we'd seen the photographs, he was clear again. I did not attend a party in Downing Street. But surprise, surprise, it turns out that what he should have said was, there was no party in Downing Street that I did not attend. Same words, different meaning, from a man who was sacked from his previous jobs for lying. Of course, now he refuses to say anything, at least until civil servant Sue Gray or the Met Commissioner Cressida Dick have finished their respective investigations, which, to a cynical biker, sounds a lot like popping down to the Winchester and waiting for it all to blow over. The people were angry, and rightly so, but their anger will soon blow over too. Something else will come along to distract us, to take away our attention. I'm not suggesting that Cressida Dick's departure was related to Boris, or that Putin invaded Ukraine just to save Boris's fat lying arse. But if we discovered that Boris and his chums had all recently instructed their stockbrokers to go short on Aeroflot, Gazprom and Sparebank, would we be surprised? Should we be surprised? Would we actually care? I'd like to think that many of us would be in uproar. But after reading the Daily Mail's obligatory 5 articles on the pittance of parliamentary pay scales, pitchfork futures would have been plummeting faster than the fucking Russian ruble. In the good old days, we were less forgiving, less understanding, and less tolerant of political shitfuckery. But the slope has clearly been getting slippier. Cash for questions, cash for honours, cash for access, cash for citizenship, cash for visas, MPs' expenses, dodgy dossiers, weapons of mass destruction, and now massive no-bid PEP contracts for their chums in the WhatsApp groups. It all comes too fast. Too fast for us non-club members to pause and take names. So we just gasp and shake our heads until the next act of shitfuckery comes along. And it will come along, because they keep getting away with it, committing their crimes in plain sight and hiding their trees in the forest. At least back in Thatcher's day, once you were rumbled, you were out. Well, especially if you're a competitor for Tory party leadership. And it's not just the Tories. In Tony Blair's time, 2 members of cabinet were forced to resign twice, both within a year. But can you name them? Can you remember their misdeeds? Probably not. But for the record, it was David Blunkett and Peter Mandelson. Both kicked out for corruption. Both given a second chance. And both at it again within a year. After 15 years of Thatcherism, Tony Blair's New Labour looked a lot like old Tory, less heartless but arguably more corrupt. And I thought Thatcher's world was a low point. But entering my life-beginning 40s, the political landscape looked even worse. De-Ream meant well. But when Tony Blair gave Formula One an exemption from the ban on tobacco sponsorship in sport, the £1 million cheque from Bernie Ecclestone had already been cashed and the grift had already set in. After 10 years in number 10, when Northern Rock faltered, the writing was on the wall. So after tossing that hospital ball to Gordon Brown, Tony Blair signed a multi-million-pound book deal, joined the multi-million-pound lecture circuit, and as calls for him to be tried for war crimes mounted, rather than sending him to the ICC in The Hague, the United Nations made him their special envoy to the Middle East. They really do like rubbing our fucking noses in it. I'm not in the habit of feeling sorry for politicians, but Gordon Brown? Well, he was screwed from day one. But 2 years into the worst financial crisis in living memory, who did the British public choose to represent their interests in the House of Commons? An Eton Toff, former lobbyist, multimillionaire, and former Bullingdon Club member, a man who thinks pork scratchings are what you get when they don't remove the teeth from the pig's head on the buffet table, the Tories' rising star, David Richling Cameron. In defence of the British voters, in 2010 they didn't give him an outright majority. And Cameron's solution for the financial crisis was similar to Franklin D. Roosevelt's 1930s New Deal. In absolutely no way at all. FDR's New Deal saw the federal government spending and investing its way out of recession, creating employment through infrastructure programs, protecting the most vulnerable with the social safety net, reining in the banks that caused the economic collapse, and raising taxes on the richest people and most profitable corporations to pay for it. David Cameron, on the other hand, reduced government spending, reduced the social safety net, reduced taxes on the highest earners, and increased real taxes on the lowest earners, turned a blind eye to tax havens and the offshoring of profits, and all whilst declaring that we're all in this together. Strangely, the more that phrase was repeated, the more people bought it. He'd rekindled the Blitz spirit, and the people getting shafted the most suddenly started giving a shit about government spending. They couldn't tell you the difference between deficit and debt, or investment and expenditure, but hey, we're all in this together. And after 5 years of austerity, just as they'd done with Margaret Thatcher, the British public voted David Cameron back into office with an even bigger majority. Would you know it, austerity turns out to be a word that posh people use for shitfuckery. And even when Cameron's own family were exposed for using offshore tax havens, it was like water off a snake's back, because we're all in this together. George Carlin was right. It's a big club and we ain't in it. And if you asked a dozen boomers to name the 2 biggest political scandals in living memory, what would they say? I'm guessing John Profumo and Jeremy Thorpe. The former, whose model mistress had a taste for Russian beef, and the latter, who seems to have been more inclined towards British beef. It's almost as if all of the other shitfuckery never happened. And then we got this.
The train now standing on platform 1 will be calling at isolation, stupidity, recession, and all stations to foot shooting. Please mind the gap.
So, in 2016, Prime Minister David Cameron gave us the referendum on EU membership. Nigel Farage, the guy who finished third behind John Bercow and a candidate dressed as a dolphin, actually managed to convince 52% of those who voted that leaving the European Union would be a good thing. I think many people were surprised, and after Article 50 was triggered, despite suffering through 10 years of Tory austerity, many of those same British voters elected Boris Johnson to get Brexit done. It's actually now 2022. That's 90 years after Huxley's Brave New World, 73 years after Orwell's 1984, and 42 years after Yes Minister first aired. And here we are, recently divorced from the world's largest single trading bloc, wallowing in the scent of sovereign goodness, and just waiting for the countless benefits of Boris Johnson's oven-ready Brexit to start rolling in. I honestly can't see why so many people are being negative about Brexit. We've got our blue passports back, and now we'll be able to whip them out and show them off at 27 more borders. So that's a good thing, right? The European Union had a rule for everything, and the one that banned us from having blue passports, well, that was one of the worst. Nobody's ever been able to show me that rule, but an absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, right? Soon, I'll be able to buy Foster's lager in a British pub, drink it from a proper pint glass, and pay for it with good old British pounds. Because ever since joining the European Union, I've really missed those things. And now that we're leaving the European Union, I'll no longer need to worry about being conscripted into the European army. And when I do come back to Britain, I'll no longer need to worry about my old 3-pin plugs not fitting into those unsafe European electrical sockets that the bastards made us all install. We might even be able to get the Queen back. Because like losing our British pounds, our British pints, and our British quirk of driving on a different side of the road, since surrendering our sovereignty to those unelected bureaucrats in Brussels, I really have missed those kind of things. Fuck it, now that it's happening, we should have a national street party. It'll be fun, just like in the good old days, and the extra £350 million a week we'll be investing into the NHS, that's just the icing on the cake. I haven't felt this proud to be British since the 70s. Maybe we should bring back pounds, shillings and pence. The leaders of the world's 3 most powerful nations also desperately wanted Brexit to succeed. And if you can't trust Xi Jinping, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, then who can you trust? Of course, I'm taking the piss. Because if I wasn't laughing, I'd be crying. And whereas the tears of British fishermen and farmers are getting lost in the ocean and soil, the tears of Remainers are being used by faithful Brexiteers as a delicious solution to bathe in. Taking joy in other people's pain has always seemed strange to me, but it's the only thing that Brexiteers have got to hang on to. And Remainers aren't crying because they lost an election. They're crying because we all lost. They're crying because they actually fucking care. This guy is Sir Bernard Ingham, press secretary to Margaret Thatcher, and the only man whose eyebrows have independent postcodes. He was her sorcerer of spin, her samurai of shitfuckery. The man who transformed her from being Thatcher the Milk Snatcher into Thatcher the Iron Lady, and the reason why so many people still seem to think that she was our longest serving Prime Minister. Oh, you thought that too? She wasn't even close. But hey, let's not allow pesky little things like facts to get in the way of legends. This is Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson's sorcerer and samurai, the man responsible for the big red bus, and the man who also gave us Project Fear, which is an example of projection will be studied in universities for decades. In its simplest terms, by voting to leave the European Union, the United Kingdom would be divorcing itself from its 27 closest trading partners. That would be like a business arbitrarily choosing to stop selling to and buying from its 27 best customers and suppliers. It's something that in a normal world just wouldn't happen. But this is no longer a normal world. And when it became clear that the people's Brexit concerns couldn't be countered with facts, Dominic Cummings had a plan. Dominic Cummings began sorcering that spin like a master, and taking the fear that Farage and his fraternity had been spreading about the unchecked power of Europe, turned it through 180 degrees, and Project Fear was born. Question. Wouldn't border controls slow down all trade in the UK? Project Fear. Wouldn't tariffs increase the prices of all goods in the UK? Project Fear. Wouldn't UK farmers lose their EU subsidies? Project Fear. Doesn't the Good Friday Agreement make a hard Irish border impossible? There we go. Project Fear. Doesn't EU membership already give us the best possible trade terms? Project Fear. Aren't WTO terms the terms that pariah states are forced to trade under? Project Fear. Aren't Australia and New Zealand further away than France and Germany? Well, Project Fear. Would your trade deals with Mongolia and Vanuatu really make up for losing our trade with Germany, Belgium, Italy and France? Hey ho, Project Fear. Don't we already have Foster's Lager in our pubs? Project Fear. Don't the Belgians already control inward EU migration? Project Fear. Won't we be short of haulage drivers and seasonal workers for harvest? Project Fear. Don't our fishermen export most of the fish they catch to Europe? Project Fear. Wouldn't abandoning the work time directives benefit oligarchs more than workers? Project Fear. Don't those human rights acts that you hate come from the Council of Europe, which the last time I looked is not the European fucking Union? There you go again with your Project Fear. I could go on, but as I say, here we are.
This is an important announcement. Passengers, please be aware that gaps exist on every platform. However, these gaps are not equal. Thank you. And please mind the gap.
Now, don't get me wrong. I can understand why so many people fell for the mythical benefits of Brexit, but we all know that Brexit was a con. And if you do have a measurable benefit that I've missed, feel free to leave your suggestions in the comments section below. So, Great Britain in the year 2022. Adrift in an endless ocean of shit. A true island again, isolated from our best customers and suppliers because of mass stupidity. Limping along because of bullet wounds in both of our feet, and directing our anger not at the politicians who lied us here, but at footballers who dared to believe that the lives of black people should actually fucking matter. We're calling people woke because somehow we've turned caring for other people into something worthy of insult. How did we ignore the warnings? And how did we come to this? Well, if you're wondering why richlings like these are encouraging us to keep escalating the hate, then call me the Cynical Biker. But maybe it's because they know that when the culture war ends, the class war will begin. Well, that's me done for today. So mind the gap, and I'll see you all soon for another rant. Bye bye now.